we talked about our highs and our lows, and what goes into making our highs highs and our lows lows, and embracing them, sinking into them. What's the story we tell ourselves that works in order to get us from the state of dismay, despair, depression into a place of creativity, openness, readiness, power, self-actualization? Like, how do we transition? Are we subject to whatever mood I woke up in, or could I do something in order to contribute to it? And how accepting the Torah in a top-down way, like as if it's from a tyranny that is going to crush us the same way if a husband is a tyrant of his household. So this is a vision, this is a narrative, this is a structure that brings us from a state of mental slavery into a state of freedom. And if we could learn this story, know it well, incorporate it into our lives, and integrate it into our relationships, and integrate God into our lives, and integrate whatever you find to be most essential, most meaningful, most fulfilling, most valuable, most attractive, and live and be that version of yourself that is in a healthy relationship with all those things. And that would be how the chat GPT would summarize our entire conversation.
That was flow. Well worded, well said. Different thoughts and ideas, but it's interesting that you mentioned with patterns, because like we are addicted to patterns. I mean, I know on your podcast you talk so much about addiction. How about our addiction to patterns? How about our addiction to repetitiveness? Not necessarily just in a bad way, just our need to like the same way you're asking, like you already know the story. Why do you want to hear it again? You already watched the movie. Why watch it again? How many times you watch The Matrix? How many times you watch Good Will Hunting? How many times you're going to end up watching Waking Life? You know, how many times you listen to a song? A song is the most repetitive thing we can ever listen to. You listen to the same song. There's definitely a song out there that we've listened to each 100 times, 100 different times. We love patterns. We
have songs that we've even sung together 100 times, right? Like what was the Dictator soundtrack?
Oh, Dictator.
I love where your mind goes and my mind goes.
That was a breakthrough moment in my life. Da, 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 da. It's the one and only other. Aladdin. Woo.
It's really, but yeah. So, what patterns did you notice in your week this week?
Oh, my patterns. I have like a general up and down pattern in life, where it's like, and I've gotten better and better at not determining it as an up or down. But like, you know, sometimes you have like your 3 weeks up, 1 week down type thing. It's kind of like, and like, so like when I first came back to America, like when I really started reinventing myself at 21 years, these patterns would happen. It would be like 4 months, like 4 months down, which were the beginning, and then a month up, and then 3 months down, and then slowly over past 5 years, it's gotten, you know, where it's like the kind of ups are like 2-3 months ups, and the downs are like a week or 2 week downs. But yeah, this week was definitely like a downer week. Like, you know, just, you know, in my head, you know, thoughts coming in and out. And I realized that when you're in your head, it's not so much about all the thoughts that's coming in and out, because your thoughts are always coming in and out. It's just your ability to filter them out is more proficient when you're on your up time than when you're down time. When you're down time, you let those thoughts and emotions like kind of take over you. They're controlling over you, versus when you're, so to speak, I don't like to use the terms up and downs because it's a bit like binary. There's a lot of gray in between it, but that's what I realized. So it's like the same thoughts, same stuff. It's just your willingness to be willing to do something with it. It's kind of like an energy, like you either have it or you don't. Which all of life is in ups and downs. But this was definitely like a little bit of a down week. So I recognize like, okay, like I'm in my down pattern. I'm getting a bit better at it, where I'm like, okay, like this is a down period. Like maybe just exist. Maybe don't go out. Maybe don't drink. Maybe don't call a friend. Maybe just sit with it and, I don't know, be miserable for a little bit. Like, you know, it's an opportunity to be miserable. How often do you get to be miserable, you know? But yeah.
I relate with a resonance with what you're saying. I have to feel the downs, right? And like so for me, what I've been the almost the meditation I've been going through the last month plus 6 weeks almost has been of allowing myself to hit my lows and go all the way into my lows. And I was really successful this month at not, like, for instance, not watching TV when it was just to escape. And I think I watched maybe an hour and a half, an hour of TV a week, as opposed to an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. right? Like I was doing that before. I could do like, right, you see a TV show at night, of course, or 2 or 3. And why not? Because like 3 episodes are 30 minutes each. What's the big deal? And I'm gonna scroll through Instagram, right? Like I was not doing that. I was like really mindful about not mindlessly numbing my mind. And if I felt the urge to watch, or I felt the urge to like an urge to do anything, I would pause and like almost not allow myself to do anything but nothing or write. And I was doing really good at that. Like every single time I felt the urge to every time I felt the urge to go on TikTok and go on YouTube and go on Instagram, right? Every single time I felt the urge to do that, I just no. I'm not. The answer was no. I didn't open my TikTok app. I didn't open Netflix on my phone. Like that, it was really good. This past week, I went back into I realized, oh wait, I'm writing less. Oh, magic. Oh, I watched a whole bunch of TV. Like I kind of like flipped on the binge, or like I always have like these binge purge. Like that's my pattern, and like letting the binge kick in real quick and letting it die real quick is like what I'm trying to be mindful of. Like I realized like too late. Oh, I just missed writing today, and I missed chakras today, and I missed those things that I that I fall back on and rely on and build myself off of in order to be healthy. Like I know how to be healthy if I'm doing those things, type deal. And yeah, so this past week I slipped up, right, and I went back to my addictive habits, and then now it's back on track, right? Like today's
you mean you were human this week? This week you became human again? You got down from your high white horse?
That's not the human. That's my animal. I was an animal. Because the human is part animal, part spirit. And so I let the physical side of me dictate my less motivated, my self-destructive side participate a little bit more this week. And I do believe I'm not subject to that. And I know, like, and I'm not guilty. I don't feel guilty. That's the way you get stuck in that downer, is you start to feel guilt and shame. If I start to feel guilt and shame about my downer, it's like, no, okay, it happened, great, I'm in it, I'm aware, whoops, my brain's back on. Healthy Mendel is in sight, he's not that far away, he was here yesterday, he can be here tomorrow, maybe he's not here right now, and I'll see you later. And take out the journal and just write, and do that instead of the next thing you were going to do. And that's how I get out. And so for me, that's like been my journey, is writing, creating, writing, like talking out loud. Like I'm structuring my weeks where Sundays, like, okay, a little bit of order, taking care of like logistics for the week, a little foresight of the week in the morning, and then creative conversations with my good friend Ariel and whoever's around, like on Torah, Jewish philosophers, like that type of stuff. Get my brain rolling, and then come home, bedtime. I'm sitting here with Meyer right now. That like and we're gonna. I have on my mind a topic to talk about, or a potential direction we can go. And
for today,
yeah, I mean, I have a flow of thought. I haven't formulated the question. That's what I was thinking about. Yitro and Maimon Har Sinai, and this bottom up, like the idea of a Choten Moshe, right? Him being the father-in-law, and Har Sinai being a chuppah, and Yisro being yeter, and being extra, and this additional thing, and him being necessary for the Torah. And what did he bring to us? He brought to us a structured hierarchy of governing and judgment. Before that, it was necessary that he came from the outside. He was the wisest man in the world who knew all the religions, and he comes in, and how I have all these parallels of, is the Torah top down or is the Torah bottom up?
Is the Torah top down? Is the Torah bottom up? Is it exclusively one of them?
Well, what do you think it is? Like the Torah is from God. Torah is from God, right? Like,
right, Torah is from God, but at the same time we have the pasuk that says "Istakel b'araisu barasa olam." Like the Torah existed before the world. Like the world's like blueprint was the Torah. So that sounds very bottom up to me. Also, all nature, like things emerging from the bottom towards the top in itself, like things progress not from the top down. In nature, which is what we consider, the closest thing to ourselves to like the godlike type gene, that's very bottom up. ourselves, the way we grew up as humans, our thoughts are very bottom up. Like
Right,
but at the same time, top down, like like it's literally given from heaven. Like it was brought down from heaven, you know, it didn't come from the bottom up. So it was like kind of brought down from heaven. So yeah, the top down. So there's a lot of dogma. All the dogma in the Torah is all top down. But our kings that we've had are all emerged bottom up. So as I'm asking, like, is it like, must it be one of the two?
No, I mean, I imagine it would. It's first off, it's probably a false binary. If that'd be the first line of questioning, like, is that even what's top down, what's bottom up? What the hell do you mean? Is there middle, or is that not a thing? Like that, right? Yeah. But I mean, I think what Yisro. It says, Rashi, if it wasn't for Yisro, why do we have a idol worshiper who has a name in the parsha? And Rashi comments that this is an extra parsha in the Torah, and all the Zohar talks about if it was like like we needed what Yisro had to supplement for Moshe, right? Moshe was the person dealing with all the people, and he was by himself. He sat there alone by himself at the top, and the Jews were lined up outside of. And it was just all top down. Everybody was going to Moshe, and Moshe was basically the talking piece for God, and he would speak. And Yisro's like, you can't do this. It's lo tov. Like, it's not good that you're sitting up here all by yourself. And Yisro, some foreigner, idol worshiper, who comes down for whatever reason, the father-in-law of Moshe, and builds a court system, a hierarchy of, like, for big things and small things, difficult things and small things. And the big things will come to you, the hard things will come, the difficult things will come to you, Moshe, and all these minions underneath you will, like, and he built a hierarchy, and one that was absolutely necessary in order for us to receive the Torah in any real way. So Yisro recognized that you guys are a bunch of, like, this is a flimsy system if it's reliant on you, Moshe, and we need to create a system that has the potential to integrate this revelation of Sinai. Right, like it has the potential to integrate it, and it won't happen because it's not going to happen right away, and it's going to be this lifelong journey of people trying to integrate and learn the Torah and like live with the Torah, and they're going to be interpreting it for their entire and they're going to have laws and rules and courts, and reality is going to kick in. So we need to ready ourselves for reality, and this is the bottom up. In order for if the Torah is all top down, if the reason I'm doing it is because God said so, that's the only reason, and I don't appreciate it, and I don't recognize how, like, my entire reality is built on the back of this text and on the back of this story, and whether it's the math I know, or the history I know, or the philosophy I know, or the self-help I know, or the science I know, it's all has religious a priori assumptions. It's all built on that, and that if I want to best live in accordance with reality, here's the guide map, here's the blueprint, here's the, like, and so we don't want a tyrannical relationship between God and us. We want it to be a reciprocal one where we're both participating in a union, and so that demands a bottom up. The idea of derech eretz kadma l'Torah, that the way of the earth preceded the Torah, is, we have the traditional reading, which is like, oh, being well-mannered is more important than Torah, whatever Torah is. But on almost a literal sense, that what the Jews were doing was essentially learning the way of the world and learning about the world, the derech eretz, and that preceded the Torah. So how do you build courts? How do you get food? How do you fight outside? Outside enemies? Like, they were getting to develop themselves as a nation. They went from being slaves in Egypt to, like, under tyranny, to being totally and utterly liberated. But that's chaos and anarchy. That's not real freedom. We need a way to make food, right? We need a way to have court systems and resolve disputes. And so, and in a relationship, in a marriage, you have to have that. And I think it has to be direct parallels, and we can learn from a relationship what our relationship with God is supposed to be like. And we can learn from our relationship with God what our relationships are supposed to be like. and find some ideal guide to, at the very least, relationships and perceiving the world and functioning that way. So that's like the meta narrative.
Very interesting analogy, bro, on the derech eretz kadmon Torah. Like, I've always heard it as like mannerisms, like derech eretz, like the way of the land, meaning like, you know, like being good mannered and caring about, you know, people around you, just with being normally human comes before the Torah. But it's so true. It's telling you a time frame as well. It's telling you just like a historic time frame. The historic time frame being that the way of the land came 2,500 years before the Torah, like the way the land preceded the Torah, like you mentioned. And it's also very much sounds like the needs that you mentioned and certain needs that you need to do, which is what I looked up right now, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, you have like, because the physiology, which is like the sleep, the food, the water, you know, like you can't get to a dogma of Torah. You can't get to like an idea of how to live life if you can't, if you aren't already living a life, you know. So you can only how to live a life requires you having a life to live in the first place. So you go from that, you go from safety, you put some board, you put shelter, then you have love, belonging, you have some connection, you have esteem, and then you have sex actualization, which, I mean, all of Torah seems like obviously goes down to all these things, but you know, a lot of it is the peak, which is the self-actualization, consciousness of yourself. You know, if we believe that it comes, which we do, straight from Hashem himself, you know, and our connection with God itself is through consciousness, then, you know, it's only fair that like it makes sense that like we'd have all these needs. Derech eretz or kol hatomar, like there's certain needs you need to get to in the first place to be able to have the self-actualization, to be able to connection with God. And going back onto Yitro, I have a question. I'm going to end up my little comments with a question. It's no coincidence that in all of Torah, it says only twice, lo tov, not good. Only twice in all of it says not good. The first time is in Bereshit, where God says, lo tov liot adam bilvado, not good for man to be alone. Aselo zer kenegdo, I'm going to make him a partner. Simple translation. Not good for man to be alone, I'll make him a partner. Very, very simple. That's telling you don't be alone. And then just don't be alone, whether it's in life, with a wife, with a friend, when you're playing stuff, when you're working, whatever it might be. It's in general, don't be alone in general. You know, be surrounded with people. It's a mentor, where you have people you can teach, people you can mentor, whatever it might be, all around, don't be alone. The second time, which it must have some corollary, you know, attributes if it's only 2 times and it's using the exact same language, Xera Shava, I think it's called, or, yeah, I'm not sure it's called, no, not Xera Shava. But I forgot exactly what it's called when you have 2 words with the same exact translation. The second time is over here in this parsha, when it just says, Lo tov zosa shirata oseh, not good what it is that you're doing. And to me, the corollary between those two things, that all of Torah, all 5,700 psukim that are in there, all the life, all the knowledge, all that it encompasses, only 2 things it tells you don't do. Which means that as long as you're not doing these 2 things, it means that you'll figure it out. Like, you'll be okay. And those 2 things, it's simple. It's don't be alone, be around people, be involved with people around your life. And the second thing is have structure, which is what Yisro says. Now you're going to have these things. It's structure and not being alone. If you want to start somewhere, you want to figure out what to do, I want to get somewhere. Where do I begin? Start with those 2 things. Surround yourself with the people you want to be around towards the goal you want to achieve, and create some structure to it. It doesn't have to be crazy. Once a week, whatever it might be, create some type of structure you're going to be committed to. Those are the 2 things that are like the minimum requirement to get wherever you want. That's all you need. And then the question to end the whole entire thought of Yisro is, why does he leave?
When does Yisro leave?
He leaves. He goes into the desert. He stays with Moshe Rabbeinu and all the Klal Yisrael. They bring him in with open arms. And at some point he gets up and he's like, all right, guys, I'm outie. Like, I'm done. Well, this was a great ride. It's time to walk away from this.
Right, I think he was like almost like a interim CEO, like putting things in order, and he wasn't coming to, like, when you hire a CEO to set a company up, and then you switch that CEO. So that's kind of how I view him. Like, I mean, his kids, he brought his grandkids, Moshe's kids, and then Moshe's wife back to Moshe. That's one thing that he does, and he basically, right, like, it almost highlights this point where he just lands in the story, like hatches his wagon to our train, and rides along with us for a little bit, and then unhooks and changes and provides us with this it says the same thing. Like Moshe Yoshev, Hadavar Hazeh Sheta Oseh, right? This thing that you're doing, Yoshev Levadcha, like you're sitting alone, and
there you go. Wow.
and so the lo tov Hadavar, the thing that is not good that you're doing, 4 psukim later, what was that thing that he was doing that was not good? Was being alone. And so, and then as almost like an actual replacement or a supplement to Moshe, like meaning a workable version, a truth that could exist past a single individual. Yitro was somehow, however he got that, he was somehow sensitive to the structures of the world and hierarchies and how people work, and this is a way that you should set this up in ones and tens, right? It groups tens, hundreds, thousands, and 500,000s, and there's going to be heads of those, the greatest. So you're going to have the head of a household, right? He's the greatest in 10, and then you're going to have the head of a community, greatest in hundreds, and who would be made up of all the heads of those households, right? And just building a structure that works, and then it's so real that every successful government that we know right now, or so far successful, are built on these biblical structures, or at least attempting to. And so, and they're what allow for things like Great Britain and the United States of America, especially the United States of America. And how if you were to pull out this story, like imagine you were to erase the Bible from the memory of everybody in history, like almost nothing, like the amount of the world that would just totally crumble, right? The amount of literature and art and poetry and music, like if you just took out this text from history, like it'll all just come crumbling down and falling on itself. And so Yisro knew that I'm an old man. What do I need to be here for? I'm not a part of this journey, really. I'm not even a ger. I'm just coming to join you temporarily, help you out, invest in your startup, and head off.
In my mind, it was almost like Yisro, who is the man who's tried all the religions. Like the guy was clearly seeking for a truth. He was seeking for something that gave meaning to his whole entire life. Like we say, like he tried every single thing. He tried this. He tried all the religions. He tried all the different, religions, different tactics, different everything. I mean, when he says everything, it says kol. Kol, when we use the word kol, like we're serious when we say it, we mean everything. Everything you can imagine, try to serve a deity or a being or multiple deities. It's just he did everything. And then he came along and he found, okay, wow, like, these people in the desert, these people who were completely isolated from everything, they kind of figured something out. So I like it's an interesting way of looking at it, like interim CEO, like I'll come, I'll give what I'll take, and then like I'll give what I can give, and then like I'll go on by my way. But that works. The only things that like I'm coming from a perspective and an idea that I think that Israel was looking for truth and looking for meaning. He was looking for that. He was striving, like, let me be a part of something that's greater than just myself, some type of deity, some type of meaning, some type of community. Like he's looking for meaning. His whole entire search is for meaning. And when it seems like he's found something that kind of works out for him, or at least he's willing to give advice to or resonate with, he still chooses to leave. So is that just not accepting it? The way I've always looked at it is like at the end of the day, you have choice is the way I look upon it. Like you can be given whatever you want. Like ultimately the strongest thing that you have in this world is your ability to choose, whatever it might be. I think that is the strongest choice you have. So even once you're presented with something that might make sense, might mean to you, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah,
well, I want to just riffing on what you're saying. If we're looking at the story not like as almost a framework for like Yisro is the resident non-Jew, and something that Dennis Prager and Jordan in their Exodus series have been pointing out repeatedly is how like consistently the outsider, the one who's not a member of us, the way they're depicted is more graciously than in any other, like the outsider is painted more graciously. Like we have the loved ones and the evil ones, but like Yisro comes in and we have all these people who come in and here's a way to open up to the outside world and allow influence into our world, right? So there's parts of the secular world or the wisdoms that are outside wisdoms that we could take and integrate. And then there's also the stuff we wage war against. So, and but it almost seems like to be like if a non-Jew were looking at what would my role be in this, if I believe in the Torah and I believe that just because I recognize the truth in this, there's a way for me to participate in it, in this story, in this grand narrative, and it's not by converting Jews into my religion, and it's not by me converting into their religion. There's literally a model of somebody who was an expert in his field, in the field of the world, and came and literally got an extra story inserted into the Torah totally out of the flow of the narrative, that's stuck there that we're going to read every single year for the rest of eternity. Okay, yes, he gets up and leaves.
That's a phenomenal point. Yeah, like it's also like our willingness to take in the outside.
Our need for it, even.
Right, if it's in the Torah, I'd say it's a need. It's true.
And a need, and the Zohar talks about, and Hasidut talks about how we needed Yitro to, and Rashi talks about how we needed Yitro, an outsider, the resident outsider, the guy who knew everything. It wasn't just some random person who was fascinated by the fact that there was Kriyas Yamsuf and the war with Amalek, right? Because like it says, Yitro heard, right? By Yishma Yisro. And he heard, and then he comes a little bit and says what he talks about that, and then he gathers up everybody, and then there's Moshe telling him, and then there's Yisro's response to Moshe telling him in this Vayichad, right, Vayachad, and he was rejoiced and was overwhelmed with joy from what Moshe told him. And these psukim are crazy if you just pay attention to each detail, and you realize that in English it's just a translation, which is just an interpretation. And that's a window in, and so it removes the barrier to entry, but it's just the entry point. And you have to go back into the original language, and there's so much, everything is packed into it. And Zohar, and the Zohar comes in and says, we needed someone of this magnitude to come in from the outside and recognize the truth, whatever he recognized, the glory of God, of Israel, and we needed that person to come and recognize it in order for us to have enough confidence or openness or ability to acquire the Torah, right? To really get it. Otherwise, we would have just been crushed by the Torah, and we would have had to wait another who knows how many times the Torah was attempted to have been given, and we just missed the opportunity. We don't really know how this stuff works out. It just worked out in this way, and God helped it work out in this way.
So again, you think that Yisro left because his time was done?
Yeah, he did what he needed to do. There's no reason for him to convert. He isn't a Jew. He isn't from the sons of Abraham, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov.
But I think on a path of truth, you find truth. You're going to convert to the thing that you find to be truthful. No.
But so that's where I think we're learning is that no. The answer is no. You don't have to convert to. You do convert, but it doesn't mean by becoming part of the Jewish people and celebrating our holidays and sleeping and doing all of our practices and following all of our laws. You figure out what God wants from you as a non-Jew, as a goy, as a person of the nations. You figure that out, and it seems to be that's I don't want to say this, but I do. I think there's truth to it, so I'm going to say it. It seems like a supportive role, but it's not a supportive as in submissive or you're less important. You're integral, right? You are absolutely necessary to this thing called history or the story or God's grand narrative for humankind, and the people who are most responsible for taking care of that vision that God set out and that path that He did. People are most responsible for it to the core parts of it, to the secret parts of it. That's the Jewish people. That's our unique role. We're here to protect it at all costs. We're the people of the book, and everybody else is going to make their own things. But we have this 3,500 year tradition stemming from Sinai, we've been through the Holocaust, we've been through dispersion, we've been through every imaginable suffering, and we've been through tremendous success and bounty, and we've had the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. We've been at the top of our positions in France, in the top of the world in Germany. And we've been at the highs, and we've also had the tremendous lows. And so for the non-Jew to be a righteous non-Jew, to be that's the beautiful thing about Judaism that you don't really get anywhere else. Like I'm almost confident enough to say you don't get anywhere else, is that you get into heaven, into the next world, by being a good non-Jew. You don't have to become part of the Jewish people in order to get to be part of the grand narrative. And so Yitro is teaching us that. And maybe it took us until this conversation to figure it out. But I'm sure there's backing to what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't seem like it doesn't.
I don't know the proof for it, but I know it's true.
No, I don't think I have an original thought in my head. That's my fear, is I don't have any original thoughts. So wherever this is coming from is something I read and put together sometimes. It might be a collage that's my own, but it's nothing more than a collage. Like, of the conversations I've had, the content I've consumed, the books I've read.
Original truth or collage truth is the same exact truth. Where it comes from is irrelevant. The fact that it's true is true.
Right, but like when Hadar asked me, like, is that real? Like, I showed her today how she can make a camera, like
with her fingers.
With her fingers, and she's like, "Whoa!" She's like, "How come my pretend camera could see real pictures?" Like, that was her thought. Because look at that, try it. Like, and it's just, and you can do it this way and this way. And what shape is that? Oh, that's a rectangle. And like
Wait, she was asking, like, is that real? And you were like, you weren't sure to tell her if it's real or not.
What does it mean? Is that real? Of course, that is literally more real than a picture. She's capturing it with her camera, but she's seeing me, right? Like, and what is, like, those are the words that came out of her mouth. What did she mean? Okay, that's for us to interpret and find out.
Oh my God, Mendel, you're so funny, dude. Like, I wish there was like a GoPro, like, with every conversation you have with Hadar, because I know those are the most interesting conversations you've ever had. Because kids are the most curious people in the world, and they ask the most objective, most aware type questions, and you take it like you're serious about it. It's not like, Hadar, go play with your toys. You're like, no, like, you sit there and like you probably have a real conversation with her that trips her out, trips you out, and like at some point you end up, you're like, wait, like, what isn't real? Like even, it probably makes you unsure of like what's real, what's not anymore. Like, are you asking me the right questions? Like, do I even have answers to your questions? Like, should I ask these questions on my podcast? Like, it's true. Like, this is like, that is the real camera. Like, oh, like the camera is just like a way less pixelated image of what your eyes are pixelated, to adjust. Like, to 1080p HD, this is like 20K, pixels, whatever it is.
This is reality. Or like another question she asked me, is it real? I brought her to the window right behind me over there, and it was sunset, and like the sun was just about to go down or just went down, and the sky was mostly clear, but there's this huge, do I have my phone? Yeah, I'll show you. There's this picture.
It's a great picture.
Wait, so you see that? Oops.
Oh, I just died, yeah.
So you see the cloud and the sun.
I can see a little bit of
looking out the window.
Yeah, like the color out. Her looking at the window is like a iconic picture.
The cloud looks like a horse. And at least to me, I see a horse. It looks like a horse rearing, and maybe I can figure out how to put that up on the screen. And she's like, "Is it?" And I say, "I see. Do you see the horse?" And she looks, and she's like, "Do you see the horse?" Like, "What horse?" And then like I show, and she sees. Okay, she sees, or maybe she sees. She's not sure if she sees. She doesn't not see a horse, right? And she's like, "Is it? Why is like? Is it pretend? Is it? Is it a real horse?" And she didn't say, "Is it a real horse?" She's like, "Is it real?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean." The way she worded it was so vague, like, is this real? Like, almost like, is this real? And
with every question, she throws you to an existential crisis.
No, it doesn't send me into a crisis. It sends me into, like, how do I respond to her in a way that, like, is, like, she's asking a question. What's the question she's asking? And maybe she's using the word why or what or how, and she doesn't know which one means what. So I have to figure that out. And like, what do you mean by why? What do you mean by what? Because you realize how quickly that she makes those mistakes, even linguistically. And so, yeah, and then asking her, I just letting her tell stories when you know what really happened and listening to her version of what happened and her not knowing that you know what happened. Just that's you are not a whole person. You are not an adult. You are not. You have no idea who you are until you're a parent. I like there's no way. Like more than marriage, like more than anything in the world, until you're a dad, you don't really know yourself until you have one person that you're having a conversation for the rest of your life. Like and you're committed to that being the case, like come hell or high water, and you want it to be at the very least not horrible and a source of pure pain. You want it, and then ideally something that could be great in an incredible relationship. And so if you have that and you have kids and then another kid and you build yourself around those permanent relationships, the most meaningful, significant, difficult, rewarding relationships that you'll ever have, and you pay attention to them, you are in for a treat. That's all I could say. Like, you do your best to pay attention and play as much as
Wait,
possible.
Mendel, what do you mean when you say you caught my interest? What do you mean when you say that once you have like a committed forever now relationship with someone that like you get to really know yourself? What about that makes you get to know yourself? Is that because you can never lie to yourself? Is it because like you always need to be present? Is it because you learn things that you didn't like? What are you learning about yourself in that conversation with someone that you know is going to be foreverly there?
I would say all of the above at the very least. I'm sure there's more to the list, but the fact that you could, right, the same way you watch that movie and you watch it again, and then you watch it again, and you watch it again, and you watch it again, you, okay, a month of being in a relationship versus a year versus 2 years versus 3 years, right? You have the same conversations over and over again, and some of them you keep happening and you hate that they keep happening, and some of them you love that they keep happening, but eventually, but you still somehow, you could get to a point, I imagine, where you have nothing to talk about. Like that happens with a lot of people where you went on one date, 2 dates, 3 dates, and then the fourth, and like it was all great, but you got to the fourth date and there was nothing to talk about. You showed up for a fifth one, nothing to talk about. Like you almost exhausted each other. But if you're married to somebody, the fact that I get to keep talking, keep thinking, keep realizing that I don't know who she is, and that I don't even know who I am, and realizing that over and over and over again, but I do know who I am, but maybe I'm just having difficulty expressing who I am and manifesting who like the ideal or best or better version of me is. And then the same goes for Yaela. And if you're committed to being together, and if you're in come hell or high water, it may as well be great. And so the fact that I get to keep on, like, I don't know if I have all the right words, but I definitely don't. You get to this point where you're further expressing yourself, and she's getting to know, Yella gets to know me more. And then, and wow, I can't believe we went this entire relationship without this being like a shared reality between us. Like, I didn't know this about me, or you did, or I knew it and you didn't. And I wish you knew it, and I was resentful for you because don't you know I love this, and don't you know I love that, and don't you know I'm just this, don't you know I'm a fool, don't like, and then like, what do you want from me, right? And then just like all of that, and two people, like no one gets to a point where they're done getting to know their wife, and same goes, there's nowhere, you never get to get done getting to know yourself, and you're the most vulnerable, the most open, the most subject to like death and being grabbed by the throat and destroyed. Like there's no one who could hurt you more than your spouse. A bad husband is, and who who could entrap you into a relationship forever and use every one of the things he learned about you against you, and vice versa. A woman could do that to a man. Like who could destroy somebody more? Look at divorces. Like look at them. Like look how
You know the
horrible they
quote,
are.
we say like behind every great man's a great woman.
They say that behind every, and what's the inverse? Yeah,
Well, so you never hear the inverse. I've never in my life heard the inverse. In all my 27 years of life, I've never once heard the inverse until recently. Like, I think it was maybe Jordan who's mentioned it.
no, it was Ellie Nash.
Ellie Nash?
I think
Okay,
so.
so there you go. Maybe Ellie Nash. Someone in our scope of who we listen to and look up to, and like it struck me. Yeah, it was Ellie Nash. It was. Yeah, now that I remember, it was. And like it was so true. Like that. It's like behind every fallen man must be a horrible woman too. It's only fair if you're going to give the credit to both parties when it's going great, that it should go to both parties when it's going, not the best. So yeah, like that like, I mean, I'm not married. You're a married man. You've had a successful relationship for 6 years, 5 years.
We're, I think, going on 8.
Go on 8. Okay, you're closing in on a decade. That is phenomenal.
Maybe it's 7. I have to do some math. 2016 to now. Well,
4, 3, 7. It was at the end of middle of 2016. So you're going to your 7th year now.
7th, yeah, it's gonna be 7th anniversary.
Yeah, dude, that's award. Like you should be getting an award. Like honestly, hopefully when I get to like first of all, year 1, I'm buying me and my wife an award. Year 5, I'm getting her like another award. Year 10 is a massive award to us. It's like we achieved closeness for a decade. Like that.
Right, you're already in the 99th percentile of human beings, like in relationships.
Yeah.
If you've made it this much, like, or 80th percentile, whatever it is. How many? If 50% of relationships end, I think like 30 of them in the first year. Just do the math. Like, if you make it past the first year, what are your chances of success? For sure, they have the statistics. If you make it to 2 years, what are your odds of continuing to be married? If you make it to 3 years, right, the statistics will increasingly get greater as you go further along, because there's a correlation between how long you're in a relationship and how long you're in a relationship. But
no, past 10, 15 years, it might get, easy. I don't know.
Right.
But
it doesn't get easier. It gets more likely that you'll be there at 50 years than
right.
Yeah. And that's crazy. I think we live in a world where we're almost rectifying all the problems that we've ever had with relationships in the most violent, disruptive, crazy way. Like, everything is upside down, topsy-turvy, right is left, left is right, gay is straight, straight is gay, man is woman, woman is man. Like, it's all upside down world, totally confusing. Like, roles, gender roles, place in society, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a Jew, what it means to be an American citizen. All of these grand narratives are like almost imploding on themselves, but we're holding on to things, and it's going to affect the future, and it's going to affect Torah, and it's going to affect everything that's to come. And just like the very fact that we're talking like we are on the internet, and when this would have only have been a private conversation, like how many times have we had this conversation just privately? And okay, we'll post it, and people will listen or they won't listen. It doesn't matter, but it exists in the world, and we created something. And to do that with somebody, it's all I know. I don't know if it's good to get married, but I know it's not good to not get married. Lo tov liot levado. It doesn't say tov liot biyachad. It says lo tov liot levado. It doesn't mean it's not always going to be good when you're together. It might be really bad when you're together, but when you're alone, when you're alone, it'll always be bad.
Very well said. Very, very well said. It's a great point. Don't be alone. It doesn't say be together. I mean, like, I know for us, togetherness it translates, especially in that pasuk, as marriage, and it's fine. It's beautiful, and might be the more pleasurable, more emotive type of thing you can go to. But it's a good point. Like, it doesn't say be together; it just says don't be alone. And there's truth to that. There's truth to that. It's like they say similar. It's the same way. It's like you don't have to be you don't have to be perfect to not be bad. You could be in the middle of it. You know, you don't have to go all the way to like what could be the possible best, to not be in the bad. Like the idea is to not be in the bad. By definition, not being the bad, you're going to be in, you know, quote unquote, the better, gooder area.
No, it's like
And then
I would do it statistically. It's like if you're alone, whatever alone means, 100% chance of failure.
right,
If you're together, if you're together, 50% chance of
right,
failure. Like let's say, and because that's basically the statistics. And sometimes it would have been better to be alone. You're right. Like almost, but there was no. It's like, is it better to have loved and lost than never loved at all? So, and to be open to getting hurt and to be open to failing and to also be open to the possibility of something incredible. And then maybe even something mediocre, because a mediocre, like to be, and if you're alone, like you're not married, I do think, right, you find a business partner and you find a community and you find people to work with on a joint venture that you can be in for a long time, whether it's a Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David relationship, or it's like just have somebody else in your life that like you're working on with something, like, and that you're getting that you have a real friend that knows you and that you know them and constantly work on it. And like those are your only options. Like, and you might say, oh, I'm not ready for marriage. Oh, I'm not ready for, I can't have any friends. I hate people. Like, and right, it might suck, but that's like, I don't, like, it's an incomplete life.
I always ask people when they go down that path, I always ask them, like, remind me or remind yourself of some of the happiest times you were in your life. Like point to position when you were the happiest times in my life. I know in my life, it was 2 times when I went traveling with a girlfriend, were the 2 happiest moments of my life. Or you can go back to that place. Going on a class trip to New York City when I was in 6th grade. Happiest time of my life. Going on a business trip with a bunch of my employees to Memphis. Always in my personal life, it's been while I'm in movement with people who I relate to, I enjoy being with, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's employees, someone who I'm around you day to day. So I ask the same people because I'm sure if I'm feeling this way, I'm sure other people's will as well. You can ask yourself as well, what are one of the best trips I did was with Menachem, Mitch, and Zach. We went to Bulgaria on a ski trip. I know you went with Sammy. I know you just went with your friend right now to Amsterdam. Like, there's a different type of smile that you have on your face, but you send me pictures of there. You know, the moments that you are most appreciated, that you most like in your life, whether you want to admit it or not, and you don't have to admit to yourself because this is the truth. The truth that exists is when you are sharing space, sharing emotion, sharing ideas, sharing adventures with someone else, whether a man, whether a female. Obviously, with a female, it can get to, you know, kind of deeper senses. Although with a man, you know, it can be sharing just as much. But ultimately, like, your happiest times in your life are moments where you have shared something with someone else. So being alone, just from an experiential part of logic and experience, and is in itself is a proof good enough for you. Just look inside your life, see when you were happiest in your life, and try to figure out who was there, and attach yourself to those people: your parents, your friends, your brothers, a girlfriend, a wife, maybe a coworker, an employee. So yeah, I'm certain that for most people, the time that they felt best in their lives was when they were surrounded with people that they cared about, that they loved. For me, it's through traveling. For them, it might be in their house, over Christmas, over Hanukkah, over Easter, Pesach, whatever it might be. But it's always going to come down to sharing something with someone. I mean, I think the very reason why people start doing podcasts in the first place, or the exact same way that you share a picture of yourself on Instagram, it's like, I see something amazing, I see a beautiful sunset, or I have an amazing idea, or I have something to give. I want to share with you because it gives me more meaning in itself. Like, the sharing is what we like. When we see something amazing, the first thing we think is to take a picture. Why? To show it, to have it, to keep it, to share it, to you know, go to give it to other people around us. So it is no coincidence that, you know, the very thing that we like to do the most is when we're not alone, and that every time we want to share something, we do it with someone. It's always in relationship to who we can share with. The negative of it, you know, could be jealousy, could be for other people, their approval, and all that kind of stuff. But even then, you know, at least you're jealous of other people and not jealous of, like, your own inner stuff.
And just to hone in on it, I do think it does matter what you're doing with those people too, because some of the worst things you've ever done in your life have happened
just people
when
too.
you were with people too.
Right.
And like this power of the mob, and when there's like when there's 3 people in one place and you're trying to engage with the world outside of you, whether you're on the bar street doing a pub crawl or or vandalizing something. Like it's getting in fights. It's happening in groups, and fights happen in groups, and fights happen with other people, and the worst, most wars happen with other people. And I think the choice, that's where the choice is for us, is recognizing, okay, first, lo tov liot levado. Okay, what does it mean to be alone? Let's do the opposite of that. Like at the very first, if you look at the Bereshit story, the next line is, and you should leave the house, you should leave your parents' house and to cleave onto your wife, ledavaktabo, to cleave. And we understand that to mean have sexual intimacy with, like an embrace, a lock where you're glued together, where you're fused, where you're making love, or that act of making love there's a reason that there's one thing that has the euphemism of making love. There's nothing else that gets the euphemism of making love. And it's choose your friend, right? Choose your friends wisely, like the Jordan Peterson rule. Be careful who you share good news with, and be even more careful who you share bad news with. And you want to share good news with somebody who's going to be proud and excited for you, and bad news who is there for you to listen when you get bad news, and doesn't diminish or demean or belittle the bad news that you give, and lets you sit with it with them, like, and then move through it. Like all of those are. And then, okay, so if and to do it, like maybe we're working on a project together, or a film together, or a podcast together, or a course together, or self-development together, or self-improvement better, or marriage better, like to be the things that we're picking to be engaged with, where we choose to talk with, the books we read, the places we go. Maybe I have one friend who goes to concerts with me, and I have another friend who I talk philosophy with, and I have another friend who I go to the movies with. And maybe a wife is somebody who you do all of those things with, kind of. Like all of you is in one person. It's one chavrusa that you want them to at least recognize and acknowledge and see all of you, and vice versa.
In 6.5 going on 7 years of marriage, and can you give Meyer, your friend, a quick, or everyone else who's listening as well, kind of like it doesn't have to be quick, but a rundown of how would you categorize a 6.5 going on 7-year relationship, and the words that are available to you, and your only ability to share with us through words. So do your best, Mendel, because I know if you could download all of it and plug it in, but.
You're asking what have I learned in 6.5 years? What does it mean to me?
I'll direct you a bit more, because I'm saying, you mentioned, like, you said, like, you have certain friends that you go out with, certain friends you watch movies with, certain friends you play golf with, certain friends that you talk sports with. Your wife is doing all of those things. So having a friend,
parenting with, plus having to have difficult conversations with, plus having to deal with shame and guilt and anxiety and somebody, and hiding, having to run a house with, and having, like, we have so many and how to parent and so many things, and going out to eat and enjoying food and family and different families, and we're two different people with two totally different perspectives in two totally different worlds, somehow ideally working in unison to write a script for all intents and purposes. That is our life. And our life has different hats that we wear in different time periods and different time frames. And we're trying to work on a script that works for both of us. And it's not tit for tat, like, because tit for tat is the death of sanity in a relationship. If you're just calculating. Tit for tat
meaning, like, I've done this, so you give me this.
Yeah, and not even explicitly. We do it all the time, just subconsciously. Like, oh, like you went away on vacation for a week, or you went away on a business trip, and I had to deal with the kids. So when you get back, you're like, I'm just disappearing, and you're taking over. Like an immediate need for izun and balance, like this incessant need for equality and sameness in a relationship is sickening, and it's when we're not properly oriented towards the relationship, towards the marriage, and we're like, it's different to say I need to be healthy, and so I need a good marriage in order to be healthy, It's in order to have a good marriage, I need to be healthy, and I need to take care of myself, and I need to be the best version of me. So, but it's with the aim of being the best possible Mendel. And it's hard to say who's at the top, but in order to be the best spouse, I need to be the best version of myself. And realizing the biggest choice you will ever make in your life, the biggest sacrifice is, especially in today's day and age where you get to choose one woman and one person to build a life with, you're literally sacrificing every other possibility that could have been, every other woman, every other, like every whim, every trip, you're sacrificing single Meyer's life for another person. I sacrificed single Mendel for, like, it's the biggest sacrifice you could do. Like, we sacrifice for a job. Oh, and go into finance, it means I'm not going to film. I'm going to write a book. That means I'm not going to make a movie. And there's, like, obviously it's not binary, but I'm going to be a parent. That means I'm not going to be out partying all night. We're always making sacrifices, but the biggest one you make is who are you going to live with? Who are you going to, the one thing that you're going to be married to, hopefully, for your entire life. And that's maybe a career if you believe in that, but even that, I think that's probably where I've learned about myself is like a version of me that I want to be married to as well. Like I'm married to myself. Like that's a really, it's like I'm married. Like I'm inextricably linked. I'm not married to, because marriage is an arbitrary imposition almost. It's not even arbitrary. It's like a set. I am me, and I don't have a good relationship with myself, meaning I could have a better one with myself. And to have the best possible relationship with yourself in relation to another human being is, at least I think, the most potent place to, I don't know, be the best version of yourself. Like you don't have
the way that faith explains. Sorry to cut you off. And yeah.
No, keep going. I'm just rambling. I probably should have cut out half of what I just said because I don't think I made sense of it.
And the way that faith explains the relationship, which blew my mind, and I shared with you the other day, what's it called? The Venn diagram. Did you feel like at your beginning of your relationship with your wife, you were Venn diagramming, or were you guys like one on top of the other, circle over circle, and slowly transitioning to a Venn diagram? Because I'm in a relationship, and that seems genius to me. Like that's groundbreaking to me. Like you're two independent people that then go on a Venn diagram, and like you share some things, but you're still independent people. That to me is mind blowing. I'm not in a relationship, and I wish to have a relationship like in the way that faith, Online Ashes describes it. You in a relationship, how does it come out? Like what's the reality of it?
The arc of a relationship is you're two people, and then all of a sudden, wow! Like literally, it feels like you just get sucked in, and like you're just one. Like you're an organism almost, and you're totally enthralled and then all of a sudden, that collapse of ego boundaries starts to pop up, and you actually might swing back out to here. It's like, holy shit! What did I do? What did I get married? But really, like you're trying to find that place of overlap, but there is this swing of like, especially getting married young, where it's like I didn't have an established identity by any means when I got married. I got married at 20. It's totally different than what is going to be for you. Like I can only speak from my experience, and it's been a roller coaster ride of like collapse of ego boundaries, even the reinstallment of ego boundaries before marriage happened. But still this overlap, and then the ego boundaries separating, and like we work well together, but we're kind of like this, and then it becomes slightly more overlapped, and you realize, I know it's also not 2D, it's 3D, and it's going to shift at different points, but you want it to be colors, and you want it to be intertwined, and it's kind of like one of those cubes that, like, depending on which way you look at it, like there's hundreds of different color combinations on a 4-sided cube, on a 6-sided cube. It's a glass
kaleidoscope?
Cube. No, it's like a cube that if you change the colors, like it'll be purple and pink and yellow and red, and like depending on what angle you're looking at the cube, it's going to be a different color combination, like pop art. And it's like a cube, like cubes overlapping.
So you're saying that like in the beginning, it kind of you become one because you're so like enthralled, so enamored, so infatuated that like you're both willing to say yes to everything and anything. So you just become like one being, and then slowly like you realize that like, oh wow, we might not be as similar as we thought, and like kind of become a little bit more real. So you kind of open up a little bit, and then then you find like the healthy balance back where you're like kind of overlapping. Is that like, at least in your relationship, is what kind of
Yeah,
happened along the line?
and yeah, right now, and then I don't know if you could have direction like also, and maybe we're triangles, and it's better envisioned as triangles that overlap as a Venn diagram, and you want to get to a point where you're both pointed in the same trajectory, the tips of your triangle, so that like, and that way, like, I don't know, okay, that's a cool imagery that I'm gonna have to play with visually drawing. But that's what all these things are. They're just visual models or representative models. Because is it the highest or is it the deepest? Is it the most? Is it the center or is it the top? And depending on how we envision the structure, like the same things that are at the bottom are at the top. Like, are these the fundamentals or are these the ultimate aim? And you talked about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the machlokas between whether or not above the triangle of self-actualization is transcendent. I don't know if you see that in the images.
Everyone sells self-actualization almost
When
across the board.
And then do plus transcendence. So there's somebody added on to it, but it's not his original idea. Those ideas have been around since the dawn of time, like building hierarchies. And here's Yitro talking about hierarchies, and obviously we're dealing with the hierarchy of need. The three things the Jews deal with leaving Egypt are, okay, they need to get food, right? Like the man, and they're in water, and they're all anxious and worried about where are we getting food and water from. Okay, we got a solution to that. Now we're going to have where are we going to get protection from, right? We have a Molech who comes and attacks us, and like how are we going to deal with the outside that being attacked? And then we're like, how are we going to like maintain this system? Like we learn structure from Yitro, and we learn hierarchies from Yitro, and those were the three core ingredients that we needed in order to accept this transcendent thing called the Torah. And the ultimate purpose of that is to self-actualize, right? God's ultimate goal is for us to be the ultimate actualized self. And
I don't even know what that means. Like that word, I don't resonate with that word, self-actualize. What does that mean?
Self-actual, I'm making who I am into, or like existing in the world, as making it into a reality. For instance, like if I think I'm an artist and I think I'm creative and I have this ability to create, but I don't create, I'm not actualizing it. If I have great business ideas, and so this need to provide value and to be significant and to be recognized and to actualize yourself in a way that is contributing to the world, like that's all self-actualization. I have latent creativity or actualized creativity. I have
so it's to be like
to be me,
to be you, to be
like
you.
what it means
to be yourself.
What does it mean to be Mendel? What does it mean to? I think that's what the word is trying to convey,
Okay.
at least to me.
So ultimately, that's like it's like you're giving your gift to the world. Ultimately, like the pyramid gets to the point where you're able to give your gift to the world.
Yeah, and what's the reason we eat is so we could survive, and what's the reason we survive is so we could provide, and what's the reason we provide is so we could recreate and reproduce. And sex and self-actualization are at the top of the hierarchy. They're the same thing, and depending on which, like, there's so many different nusachs. You don't have to just. If you don't write Maslow's, you just write hierarchy of needs. You'll get a whole bunch of different maps, and you'll see which one you like more. But they're all expressing the same ideas, and some of them include the need for the transcendent and to interact with the transcendent. And how did we start today's episode?
So I think you were going to go on a question about the Parsha. I mean, no, that's not how we started. That was towards the middle. What was the topic we started with?
Yeah, what was the topic we started with? We kind of just opened up and we talked about our highs and our lows and what goes into making our highs and our lows, and embracing them, sinking into them, and how the past week for both of us was just kind of like, it's been one of those somewhat low weeks, but uh, how do we? What's the story we tell ourselves that works in order to get us from the state of dismay, despair, depression into a place of creativity, openness, readiness, power, self-actualization? Like, how do we transition? Are we just subject to whatever mood I woke up in, or could I do something in order to contribute to it? And how accepting the Torah in a top-down way, like as if it's from a tyranny that is going to crush us the same way. If a husband is a tyrant of his household, what you want is a peaceful household, a peaceful nation, a peaceful world. And the way you make a peaceful world is by creating a shared story, a shared vision that multiple people can work in. And the vision that the Torah provides us is that we're all worshiping something. We're all subjugating ourselves to something. We're all sacrificing ourselves to something. And if we're sacrificing, we want to bring the best of what we got. And we also want to if we're bringing the best of what we got to sacrifice, we want to do it to the highest possible aim, which you want to call that the most meaningful thing, the most fulfilling thing, the most creative thing, the most godly. Whatever you're putting at the highest, you want it to be the highest. And the Jews are the ones who are in charge of protecting that. And Yitro is the model for how the nations get to contribute, right? They bring the best of what they have to offer. They will literally get their name in the book. They will be as significant, if not more significant, than anybody else. And if it wasn't for them, the Torah wouldn't have happened. And if it wasn't for Mitzrayim, the Torah wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't for Yisro, the Torah wouldn't have happened. And so this is a vision, this is a narrative, this is a structure that brings us from a state of mental slavery into a state of freedom. And if we could learn the story, know it well, incorporate it into our lives, and integrate it into our relationships, and integrate God into our lives, and integrate whatever you find to be most essential, most meaningful, most fulfilling, most valuable, most attractive, and live and be that version of yourself that is in a healthy relationship with all those things. And that would be how the Chat GPT would summarize our entire conversation.
That was a flow. Well worded, well said. You had me in a trance. I'm not gonna lie. I was just feeling it.
That was what I felt. It was a weird flow, just like, holy shit, just let this. I have no idea where it's going, and we retraced our steps to get back to where we started, and drew a narrative arc through the whole episode. And it could seem fragmented and disoriented, but if somebody listening makes it this far, which probably won't happen, maybe 3 people will see it this far, and including my mom. And hi, Mom, you're the only one who's made it this far. And
hey, you might love me too.
How would you pull this all together? You do your version of that.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good as it is. It's like almost like we took like a thread of like a needle. Like we laid down a lot of different cloths of a lot of different parchments, a lot of different colors, a lot of different textures, and then we have like that one straw that kind of like, what's not straw, like the one chut. I don't know how to say it in English. That one like sewing
thread.
Thread. Exactly.
Needle, like thread the needle, yeah.
Needle the thread, exactly. Like tied all the different parchments. So now when I see the picture, it's like, okay, wow, like there's a lot, there's a lot there. But that was a great little, description of what we had going on today and what we spoke about, which is in itself, like we were talking about structure earlier, like this is for me the little, like my weekly structures. I have daily structures, weekly, monthly structures. There's like my weekly structure, which is like I get on and talk with an amazing friend about life, about himself, about myself every single week, regardless of, how I feel. Today was feeling horrible. I still am, just like brain fog in general, but like, just knowing like, even like last night, like I didn't stay out as long as I used to. I didn't drink as much as I used to because I know like, oh, I have something going forward to, So like it helps out myself at the very least, like in a lot of ways throughout the week. As the week goes along too, I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring this up on Mendel's podcast. I'm going to bring this up when I talk to Mendel, I'm going to bring this up, like this idea is this thought. So it's like, it kind of like this 1 hour or 2 hour thing that we have like once a week on Sunday, it creates actually like a full on structure for the whole entire week. So it's good. And even on weeks like this, where I'm just like not down for anything, I want to watch like the 3 hour pregame to the 4 hour Super Bowl. It just zone my mind out, you know. I still have to get on and do this, so that's always fun.